special meeting, and council, if you could report out, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of Supervisors met regarding the special meeting agenda for July 21st, 2015. The board met in closed session to discuss agenda items number 1 and 2 on the special meeting agenda. The board met and conferred regarding an appointment of a county employee. That employee is the Resource Management Agency Director. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54957. At this time, the board took no reportable action. In regards to agenda item number 2 on the special meeting agenda, the board met in closed session and conferred with its labor negotiators. The agency designated representatives are Allison Hauk, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, and Georgia Cochran. The employee organizations discussed were the Institutions Association, Law Enforcement Management, Management Employees Group, SEIU Local 521, the General Unit Employees, SEIU United Long-Term Care Workers Local 6434, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, Confidential and Confidential Management, appointed department heads, and the unrepresented employees. Authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54957.6, and at this time the board took no reportable action.
Thank you, council. I will entertain a motion to adjourn our special meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, our special meeting is now adjourned. I would like to welcome everybody now to our regular July 21st, 2015 Board of Supervisors meeting. And I would like to go ahead and open our meeting and invite our Supervisor Rivas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And if I could have you stand for a moment of silence after the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to recognize our moving Vietnam War Memorial Wall that was here during the 4th of July weekend, and to recognize those that we have lost, and particularly the sons of San Benito County.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Is there a motion to acknowledge certificate of posting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, this is my favorite part of being a supervisor, is when we present and recognize community members that have accomplished things in our community and beyond. And so the first one, I'm going to invite Supervisor Rivas to present an award, and I would like to ask you if I could join you. And I would like to join him because this is not only my nephew, but it's my godson. I'm very proud of him, and I appreciate that you brought this to this board. Thank you. And before we do the presentations, I would like to ask for a motion to approve all the recognitions.
As moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
So as the chairwoman says, she stole the words right out of my mouth. This is the best part of being a supervisor, is being able to recognize individuals in our county for their accomplishments and for things that they do in San Benito County. And this is a very special occasion for me because we're not only recognizing a local resident, we're recognizing a friend of mine and actually a colleague of mine at San Benito High School. And so we went to high school together, he and several of his family members. But what we're recognizing Roy here is, as you guys may have read in the paper, it's pretty outstanding. So he is being recognized for being national champion, a national sumo wrestling champion. But what's outstanding about this is he decided to become a sumo wrestler a few months ago. And as you see, he's always been an extraordinary athlete, a great athletic specimen. He's was very accomplished as a football player. He's a natural athlete. He's a gifted individual. And so a few months ago, I ran into him at San Benito High School. I said, hey, I read this thing, I saw something on Facebook that you're into sumo wrestling. He's like, oh, yeah, I wanted to do something that gave me, just this fire within to, I wanted to, this fire of being in competition. So I said, oh, that's great. And then a couple weeks later, he's a national champion. So I think this is a significant accomplishment for Roy and certainly for our county, and we wish him all the best at the end of next month as he's going to be traveling to Japan to represent not only our country, but this very small county at the national or at the World Sumo events. So, Margie, if you want to add.
No, I'm just very proud of him, as our family is, and this started back in, I want to say September, Roy, when you competed in Long Beach, and he got a bronze medal in the open and in the heavyweight. And that was the beginning of a wonderful, path that he has taken. And now he's going to Japan at the end of August, being joined by probably 7 of his cousins and really good friends. And so it's very exciting, and I congratulate him. And again, I am so proud of him. So if you want to read part of that.
So this certificate of recognition is presented to Roy Sims for winning the U.S. Nationals in the heavyweight and open the division classes at the U.S. Sumo Nationals on June 13th, 2015 in Missouri, and earning the right to represent the U.S. national team in the heavyweight the division at the World Sumo Championships in Japan. So, Roy, the best of luck.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now I
Madam
would
Chair,
like to
before you go on, I think we all need friends like Roy.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been great to have him as part of my life. So anyway, thank you all for being here. This is quite an honor for me as his auntie. So, okay, we'll move on to a presentation to the San Benito Health Foundation. And I believe Supervisor Botello, you have that certificate.
Okay, great.
And Angela, and Angelica, if you could come up, thank you so much.
Good morning and congratulations. Anyway, what is the most important thing a person could have in life? And it's my answer, it's not youth, it's your health. And that's why this proclamation for Health Center Week is so important for all of us to realize that, to everyone, there's nothing more important than having your health and having the facilities in your community that service the community. And we have hospitals, emergency rooms, doctor's office, and all those are impacted by each and every one of us, but health centers serve a large portion of that load. And so it's a pleasure that the Board of Supervisors present the Health Center Week. And for nearly 50 years, America's community health centers have provided high-quality, cost-effective, and accessible primary and preventative care to all individuals regardless of insurance status or ability to pay. And it serves over 22 million Americans, and there's 9,000 delivery sites, which we're very fortunate to have a delivery site here in Hollister. And so with that, I'm going to present this proclamation to you by the Board of Supervisors, and you could probably say a few words as far as the services that you cover here in San Benito County.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Margaret Nunez. Angelica wasn't able to attend, but I'll be accepting the proclamation for the Health Center. We've been around for 40 years, serving the community. We started on Monterey Street. So we have services, we have medical, dental, behavioral health, the WIC department, and quite a few other programs. So I did bring an invitation for all of you, and I have a few more in the back. The community is invited. I hope you'll be able to attend. It will be held on August 13th, and from 3 to 6 in the evening. And again, well, thank you. Thank you again for the proclamation.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, and I'd like to invite Supervisor De La Cruz to present the Farm Worker Health Day recognition or proclamation. Thank you.
Boy, Roy, if you need an agent, there's about 5 of us here willing to do it for free, but keep up the good work. Farm workers, it's an interesting word because my parents were farm workers, and actually I was also a farm worker too, and so this is actually personal for me and for my family. Whereas an estimated 3 to 5 million migrant and seasonal farm workers are employed in the nation's multi-billion-dollar ag industry, and whose backbreaking labor makes possible the production and harvest of many crops. And I can tell you from personal experience, even working on Saturdays and Sundays during summer, that is so true, because I remember coming in from the fields, my brothers and I, and running to our bathroom because whoever gets to the shower first gets the hot water, and the last ones wouldn't get the hot shower. So I can tell you from experience, I know the true feelings about being a farm worker. Whereas ag ranks among the most dangerous occupations, subjecting workers to health and occupational risks, yet migrant and seasonal farm workers, by virtue of the work and economically disadvantaged status, confront significant barriers to accessing doctors and needed health services. And I could tell you that from experience too, because once my dad started working for Amadam Winery for 33 years, we never had insurance until he started working there. So my family really want to be grateful for those health insurances that the Amadam Winery used to provide to our family. Whereas studies have confirmed that migrant health centers deliver comprehensive, high-quality, and cost-effective preventative and primary health care services, in addition to lifting the barriers of health care and reducing health disparities. And now, therefore, be resolved that the San Benito County Board of Supervisors proclaim the day of August 13th, 2015 as Farm Worker Health Day in the state of California, the county of San Benito. Thank you very much. And I think, anyone from the San Benito Health Foundation here? No one? Well, Madam Chair?
We will present it at a later date.
We will present it to them?
You can bring it back.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Supervisor De La Cruz. I'm proud to say that I am also part of that elite group of farm workers, and I want to say that along with my family, I want to say that we appreciate every day the work that they do and helping San Benito County with our #1 industry. So again, thank you to our farm workers. This next proclamation is for the Breastfeeding Awareness Month in San Benito County, and I will be presenting it. Anybody here that would be wanting to accept this at this time? Okay. This proclamation is Breastfeeding Awareness Month, to proclaim Breastfeeding Awareness Month in San Benito County. Whereas all available knowledge indicates that human milk optimally enhances the growth, development, and well-being of the infant by providing the best possible nutrition and protection against serious health conditions, including obesity, diabetes, and allergies. So on behalf of the San Benito County Board of Supervisors, we do proclaim August 2015 as Breastfeeding Awareness Month. So I think it's a critical way to be able to bring up healthy children. So I'm hoping, and it's also very economical, as we all know. So I proclaim, like I said, August 2015 as Breastfeeding Awareness Month on behalf of the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you. And if I could have Frank Ledesma come up, I believe he is here. Good morning. It's a pleasure to present this certificate to Frank. Frank is in my district, so I'm honored to be able to present him with this recognition because he has served in the Community Action Board for 9 years. That's a lot of commitment, going to meetings, being a part of all the decisions that are made at that level. So Frank, I really appreciate all the hard work, all the dedication for the community of San Benito. So I present you with profound gratitude for your 9 years of outstanding dedication and commitment from the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you. I hope you have something to say because we really do appreciate your hard work. So
Put you in the spot.
I put you on the spot.
First of all, I want to congratulate Roy here on his accomplishments. I was one of his teachers here at the high school, and also Angelica that was here. She's another student of mine. So I feel kind of old here, but inside I feel young. So I do want to thank everyone, and we need to fill that spot still. There's a couple more, I understand. I talked to Enrique, and there's the positions need to be filled, so we need more volunteers. So I really appreciate this, and thank everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to invite somebody from the Trindle Safety Award Organization to present some awards to some very deserving county employees. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. My name is Gene Herndon. I'm with Trindle Insurance Fund, and I'm the Director of Loss Prevention Programs. Trindle Insurance Fund, their purpose is to help each of the member counties provide a safe and healthy workplace for their employees. But that effort doesn't take place without the cooperation and the outstanding service of the employees themselves, along with supervisors and, of course, the support of the board. Best part of my job is once a year I get to go around to each and every one of the members and present an annual safety award to an outstanding employee for their efforts and their attentiveness and attention to safety and loss prevention. In San Benito County this year, you have 2 nominees. This sounds like the Academy Awards, doesn't it? The first nominee was Sheila Funes. Pretty good, I did that one. The second nominee was Juan Manuel Puente. So I'd like to have both nominees please come to the front. Nobody gets away without standing up front. And I don't need, and most people who know me know that I do not need a microphone. Very difficult choice. 2 outstanding folks have put together a lot of hard effort during the year in loss prevention and safety. Tough choice, difficult decision. Unfortunately, we had to just make one choice. So our runner-up, the drum roll, please.
we can do that.
Sheila, thank you so much for your service and your efforts this year. The certificate recognizes on behalf of San Benito County, I'd like to recognize you as a nominee for the Trindle Insurance Fund Safety Award. Thank you for your valuable care. The safety program of San Benito County is very much in your debt. So there's your certificate. So Juan, I guess you know what that means. I want to congratulate you on the receiving of this award. Well done, thank you so much, and I'd like to read this plaque that we have for you, so you can hang it on your wall. It says that, this comes from the folks who nominated. Juan maintains the parks and grounds of the Hollister Migrant Center and has a routine for each and every day. First and foremost in that routine is safety for himself and others. Regardless of the task, Juan makes sure to have the right equipment and will take the time to do the job safely. He always makes safety a top priority, knowing that a mistake could be harmful not only to himself, but also the residents and the children of the Migrant Center. Juan exercises care when operating equipment, maintains all of his equipment in good, safe working order. He willingly comes in early and stays late to make sure that the center is safe for all of the residents. Juan is greatly deserving of this recognition. Thank you so much, Juan. And here's this plaque. You can show that. I would put that there's more. Because you would have to come to Juan's area to see and be recognized his outstanding effort. So I know this may seem a little odd in the middle of summer, but we have this wonderful Trindle jacket.
Perfect.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to both of you. I'd like to move on to public comments, and I would like to invite anybody from the public that would like to comment on any items that are not on the agenda. Do we have clerk of the board?
We do, Madam Chair. Shaw Stevenson?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Sherry Stevenson, and I'm your San Benito County Veteran Service Representative. And I just came here to let the board know that we've been expanding through much collaboration and advocacy for services for veterans at the Memorial Building. So when you come across a veteran, please send them to our building for assistance and services with Department of Veterans Affairs. On the blue flyer, you'll see there's PTSD counseling for veterans offered 3 times a month. There is housing resources. There's a Veterans Resource Center and Housing Resource Center, which assists veterans in critical need of housing, some utility support if they're facing a shut-off notice, et cetera, and also unemployment services. When they come fresh off the bat from active duty, we have a representative that comes that helps them with employment. So we're very proud to present this to you. We're hard at work advocating for our veterans, and we continue to do so. Thank you.
Sherry, thank you so much.
Michael Silverman?
Good morning, members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm Michael Silverman, Vice President of our union, and I'm here with Denise Quintana, a member of our bargaining team. A favorite show of mine on television is Undercover Boss. In that show, the CEO of a company walks a day in one of their employees' shoes. The best part is when the CEO and the employee get to meet one-on-one, and the CEO learns of the struggles and successes of the employee. The show is about giving back. Our campaign theme, Build a Better San Benito County, was kicked off yesterday at our rally on 4th and San Benito streets. We believe that in order to provide quality jobs, services, health and safety to the county, that county workers are the missing piece of that puzzle. Your invitations today, in which Denise will hand out, are puzzle pieces. Walk a day in our shoes, specifically with workers from Public Works, HHS, and Public Health, to experience the quality services we provide the county on a daily basis. So how will you be able to give back to county workers? A revenue-neutral budget was recommended. Healthcare costs are going up 21%, but healthcare contributions from the county are capped. We need a raise to put that puzzle pieces back. County workers have fallen too far behind the workers in neighboring counties, and asking them to pay more for health care will lead to more turnover, retirements, and vacancies. Remember, our campaign for bargaining is Build a Better San Benito County. We invite you to join us and give back. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you do this through the clerk of the board, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other speaker cards? Clerk?
Vicky Fortino?
Oh, I apologize. I'm on 38 on.
Yeah, she's on the, yeah.
And the last one I have is David Crandall, and he's on the homeless shelter. I don't know if he wants to speak now or wait.
If this is pertaining to an item that is on the agenda, we do have the homeless. Can you make sure that it isn't on the agenda? So if you could show the clerk your information. Okay.
So thank you. I am here today to speak on the proposed shelter center. It's directly above my house. I live in
Okay,
River-
that is on the agenda, so if you, I'm sorry, but you will not be able to address it at this time, but you will have to, if you can come back during the discussion of that item. And Clerk of the Board, could you please inform him what number it is?
Correct. It is number 33, but it's on the agenda. This is for non-agenda items only.
Yeah. That is it, thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to address the board on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, I will close public comment time, and now we will go to the department head announcements. CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do have an announcement out of our probation department. We have Ted Brand here. He's our chief probation officer that has an announcement.
Just very quickly, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce the new juvenile hall superintendent, Mr. Joseph Frontella. Joe, if you can stand up. So I just wanted to thank the board for their support in recruitment and hiring, and the CAO's office and county HR for bringing Joe aboard. I'm very excited to bring him here. He has a wealth of experience and knowledge. It's a critical position to make sure that juvenile hall maintains its certification and standards per Title 15. So thank you very much.
Welcome to the San Benito County family.
Thank you.
Yeah, you may come up to the podium if you'd like, if there's anything. I love putting people on the spot.
Oh, my biggest fear come to light. Good morning. I just want to say I'm really excited to assume this position. Chief Baran has educated me as much as he can to this point. This is my second day, so I am very confused. But I am working hard to, and I know that we will be working hard, the staff and I at the juvenile hall, to work with the kids to make them, get on the right track and make this a much safer community than it already is. And I just believe that, the community is only strong as its weakest link, and I think we can do some really great work out there, and we will do really good work out there, and I appreciate your support.
Well, thank you, and welcome again, and enjoy your tenure with San Benito County.
Thank you.
Okay. CAO?
Yes, another item on the agenda comes out of administration. In February, we met with your board at a board retreat, and during that retreat, we discussed doing a follow-up meeting, a Part 2 retreat, because we were not able to finish all the items on the agenda. We talked about it being in July, or that was, I think, July 28th was the date I think that we threw around. We're recommending to come back and meet with your board for this retreat August 11th, and we're hoping that your board will make time available for that. It's a Tuesday, 9 o'clock at our sheriff's building. It's reserved. If there's any issues or problems with that, just please let us know. We'll make other arrangements. Just want to let the board know that.
Okay, we noted it and put it on our calendars. Please send us an email.
We will. We'll send you an email. That's right. The other one is also coming out of administration. Item number 11, we would like to pull it off of our agenda. We need to bring this back, make a few corrections on that particular item, so we'll come back at a later date with that particular item. And with regards to that, staff wanted to inform the board that the clerk's office will be streamlining the actual board meeting minutes from here on out. So if there were any concerns with that from your board, we would like to hear that. But we would like to actually condense the minutes where they're not so long. If there is a need to actually look at the minutes or look at the details, there is a web link on our website that actually the board and the community can actually go to, the board meeting streaming, and that comes out of CMAP, so we have those posted on our website. So we'll come back to your board as well at a later date. We're going to do a few more things out of the clerk's office. We're going to set policy. We're going to also look at streamlining the actual budget process as well internally with a new system or integrating our current ERP system for contracts, for workflow, and also, too, it may look a little bit different. So we'll probably have an agenda item that the public can see and know what the process is. So we just wanted to let the board know that as well. We'll be coming back at a
appreciate
later
that.
date.
Thank you. And, Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I'm happy that you're take these actions, and I have no problem with as long as the minutes are there, that if we need to go back or the public needs to go back and get detail, that's very important.
Yeah.
Maintain. As far as with the contracts, it's something I had a meeting with our clerk yesterday and mentioned this morning a little bit earlier. The detail of the boilerplate contract, you know, maybe that could be condensed or eliminated, but I certainly feel that going into these contracts, there should be some sort of summary in the fact that you know, what we're paying for and what the history track record of, you know, of renewing some of these relationships are.
Yeah, and I think that's the language that our CEO is speaking of in having more concise reporting. We do have audio and visual, you know, videos that are available for future if we need to look at them. So yes, I think that can come back in the way of changing ordinances and how things are presented.
Yeah, and also, too, with regards to the contracts, one of the things that we've been working internally is how we can actually be more transparent with the public as well as the board. So if we need to look up a contract, is there a way that we can actually have the public go and view those contracts via the website? So those are things we're working on right now. We want to come back to your board with an actual plan and, in essence, really making it more transparent and something that the board can look at as well.
Okay, thank you. Any others?
That is all the announcements we have.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll move on to board announcements, and I will start with Supervisor Batella.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week, I had the privilege of representing the county, along with Supervisor Munzer, at the San Juan Road interchange. Had the ribbon cutting. Got to sit with Senator Monning, and Congressman Farr was in attendance, along with Assemblyman Aleo. And it was interesting that their priorities are still, finding funding, sustainable funding for our roads and for safety improvements, as well as maintaining them. And so that was reassuring that they're working on that. But that is a major improvement for our region and the residents and businesses of San Bernardino County having that interchange in place. It's I don't know how many people have lost their lives trying to cross that San Juan Road 101 area, and it's just great to see. They did a fine job with the design, kind of a rural architectural presentation, so it looks really good. The second thing, there was a major fire a couple weeks ago in San Juan Bautista along Highway 156, and I looked into it quite a bit. There was a little controversy that was generated on the response, and all in all, I don't think I could be any more proud of how the fire department responded with the resources and working in collaboration with CAL FIRE to control 4 or 5 fires at one time. The sheriff's office was absolutely instrumental in their response and assistance, as well as Santa Cruz 911 with the communications. It was just done as well as anyone could hope for. So our efforts working together with City of Hollister and San Juan Bautista has had a real positive effect. And the last thing, I went into the San Juan Bakery a couple of days ago, and not necessarily for a donut, but
Sure.
okay, for a donut, and also to visit the a little visitor center that the San Juan Committee put up. And it's great to see the private sector working with a group of concerned citizens for the benefit of not only business in San Juan Bautista, but to promote San Bernardino County as overall. And it's a nice little visitor center, and I highly recommend the donuts and stopping by and supporting the effort.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to also say that I'll give Supervisor Patello the credit of representing this board at the ribbon cutting ceremony. I was able to represent both San Bernardino Council of Governments there and also the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments there. And it was a very well attended event. I think everybody was surprised by the amount of people that turned out for the activities and the ribbon cutting, and then we have a great interchange that is going to be working to increase the movements of goods and the safety of all the residents and travelers that use that area. I also attended, along with Supervisor Botello, a special meeting that the City Council of San Juan had after those fires in San Juan, and I too were impressed by the level of service and the level of response that the fire department responded to those fires. And one of the kind of criticism that the fire department had was they were struggling getting down Highway 156 that day because of traffic not pulling over to the side of the road for the emergency vehicles. So I want to remind the public that it is our responsibility to pull to the side of the road. And what was funny was going over to the ribbon cutting ceremony on Friday, a fire truck was coming back this way in lights and siren mode, and the vehicles did pull over. both sides, the vehicles did pull over. So I just, again, want to remind the public that it is very important to yield to any emergency vehicle with lights and siren. At last week meeting of the Council of Government, and Mary, give me a clue if I say anything wrong here, but Mary Gilbert, our interim executive director, announced that the board is working on the plans to revive the regional transportation plan in order to return Highway 25 to the constraint list. Next month, she will be back before the board with cost estimates to revive the RTP and a timeline, and we both feel that we can get this done, if not by the end of this year, by the end of first quarter of 2016. We will have Highway 25 back on the constraint list. And the other thing I'd like to bring up is in the general plan update that we will be discussing later today, it talks about the recreational area at San Justo Reservoir and the fact that it has been closed since 2010 because of a zebra mussel infestation. I feel that it is time to revisit this. It is past time that we return San Justo Reservoir to the open position, that it can once again be used as recreational for our citizens. And I'm asking, with your permission, that we agendize this at a very near future meeting of our board.
Okay. You've noted that, CAO? Okay. Thank you, Supervisor. And thank you both for representing San Benito County at the ribbon cutting. I was unable to attend, but I'm glad to know that both of you represented us well. Thank you. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to show a hand of support for Supervisor Munzer on the San Justo issue. I've gotten actually a couple of emails from some of my constituencies saying that, why can't I go fishing there? Why can't we work together or some other options? And I explained to them that we had a meeting in the past, and the federal government basically said no. So I will support you, Supervisor Munsters. I think it's way overdue. Madam Chair, I attended a family function last week in Palmdale, and we arrived on a Thursday night, and I tried to book a hotel in the Palmdale area within a 3-mile radius. Every single hotel was booked. 5-mile radius, every hotel was booked, and I finally figured out why, because you'll see a minivan, or you'll see a van, or you'll see a vehicle driving by, and it'll say Kate number 1 or Tom number 2, and then what's going on, there was a softball tournament going on. And I think we're missing an opportunity in San Bernardino County that we need to build some type of Field of Dreams sports complex, soccer complex, a softball complex to generate dollars back in our community. I went to 7-Eleven because on that day, 7-Eleven was the free Slurpee. And I took my nephews and my nieces, and we got free Slurpees. But every single kid that was there actually had a baseball cap on, especially the girls. And it's an indication of that when there's a girl playing softball, there are family behind that girl, and there's parents behind that girl, and they're spending the dollars in Palmdale. And shame on us that we can't do that in San Benito County.
We're working towards that end.
I was just, wow. Everywhere, restaurants, Taco Bell, McDonald's, they were all busy. And we need that, Madam Chair. And I don't know how many times I have to say that. And I'll say it again, and specifically on the west side of Hollister.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Rivas. Okay. I want to say, first of all, I want to put on an agenda Highway 25, because putting it on the constraint list later this year or at the beginning of next year is not soon enough for me. It doesn't need to have a plan. It just needs to be put on there, and we need to discuss it. So please, if you could put that on the agenda, we won't discuss it now. And I also want to thank and recognize the Saddle Horse Show Parade and Rodeo. They put on another fine show for San Benito County. The parade was excellent. I was fortunate enough to sit on the judges panel, and I want to recognize our very own Joe Paul Gonzalez and his departments for being in the parade and, recognizing all of the departments in great, old muscle cars, and so that was a lot of fun to watch. So congratulations to them. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And, excuse me, we have already been, we are pulling item number 11, which are the minutes for some corrections, and they'll come back on August the 4th. Item number 9 will also be pulled at this time for a later date. Okay, and I will ask our supervisors, are there any items you would like to pull?
Madam Chair, I would like the record to reflect that I have a conflict of interest on 19 and 23. I have business relations with both those items.
19 and 23?
Yes.
So
So I
you will
won't be
recuse
voting on
yourself
that.
from those two
Yes.
items? Okay. Council, does it need to step out on the vote on that one, or only if they're pulled?
Excuse me, technically, he's supposed to remove himself from the room on the conflict. So what I would suggest is the board vote as a whole on the consent items other than 19 and 23. Allow Supervisor Patel to leave the room and then vote on the consent items, number 19 and number 23.
Okay. Very good. So we will go ahead and pull 19 and 23 for the sake of you being able to recuse yourself. Any other items that are to be pulled?
Madam Chair?
Board? Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve amended consent agenda and remove item and 23 for another vote.
Okay, before we do that, I'd like to invite the public to remove any item on the consent agenda if they would so choose. We can do that? Okay, bring it back to the board then. So your motion is to approve all but 19 and 23?
Correct.
Removing items 9 and 11?
Correct.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Supervisor Botello, if you could remove yourself.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve 19 and 23.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for items 19 and 23. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Supervisor Munzer. Okay, now we will move on to the public hearings. We have 3 of them on the agenda, and I would like to have our CAO introduce them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Number 27.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we're on item number 27 this morning. This is a public hearing. This will be handled by our Ag Commissioner, Karen Overstreet, and this is to hold a public hearing to hear objections, protest, or request changes or corrections to the written report regarding the mosquito and disease control assessment rate to be imposed, and to adopt resolution accepting the annual report for the mosquito and disease control assessment and levying the rate of $11.22 per unit mosquito and disease control assessment for fiscal year 15-16 based on the engineer's report. Karen?
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. On June 2nd, we did come before you and present the engineer's report, and the board did adopt the resolution of intent to levy the assessment pending the hearing scheduled for today. Before you open the hearing, I would like to clarify maybe a couple of items that are in the engineer's report. The Consumer Price Index, which we'll hear a lot about as the CPI, is based on the San Francisco area. What I wanted to explain was that is a region that encompasses 11 counties that include San Benito County. So it really is the correct region for our CPI to be based on. The next region would be a band across the San Joaquin Valley that includes Monterey and San Luis Obispo. So it is the correct CPI. The CPI adjustment schedule also allows any unused CPI from prior years to be used in subsequent years. In 2012, there was 2.12% unused CPI, 2013, 2.69%, and the 2014 assessment was 2.67%. So the accumulated CPI would be 7.48%, and we are asking for a 3% increase. This increases the assessment total by about $5,790. With me today is Kyle Tankard. He is with SCI Consulting. He prepared the engineer's report. He would be happy to answer any questions regarding the report or the recommended assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody from the public that would like to comment on this item? There being none, I will bring it back to the Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Batella.
Yes, I was at the Ag Department yesterday with a question as far as the assessment values levied for individual parcels, I assume. And I found a big variance in some of the numbers. And I don't know if I always understood it to be $11.22 per single family home, but there seems to be, you know, different values associated with different parcels, and I just want to ask maybe an explanation as far as how those assessments are levied and why there's such a variation.
Yeah, so the rate varies based on property use type. So the rate for a single-family home on an acre or less is $11.22. And so that property type is assigned one single-family equivalent. And so each other property type within the assessment district is assigned a relative benefit factor, or SFV. So a commercial property, for instance, is assigned a 0.5 SFV per quarter of an acre. So that's why the rates vary.
So let me hold you up right there. So across the street, a house is on, I don't know, a 4,000 square foot lot. You know, it's a small house, single family house though. They're assessed different than, say, my house that's on 20 acres. is there a difference?
Correct. There's a small difference for that extra acreage. I believe it's around 20 cents for the extra acreage. So the rate differs based on the benefit each property receives. So obviously, commercial properties have a higher use, so the rates are going to be a little higher. And so that's how that works out. Vacant properties are assessed a lower rate, so their rate's around $3 a year.
Okay, that's interesting. It just came to light that I never realized that, you know, the smaller, you know, properties were assessed quite a bit less. And I wonder how that affects how we budget the program. And, you know, it's something that I think we should take a look at going forward.
I think the way that it's budgeted is by total dollars, and so there's, as long as we, you know, collect on the total dollars and not go over the budget, I believe that that is really the biggest consideration. Is that correct, Karen?
Yes. Yes, we base the budget on the assessment and the work to be performed, and so that we work within that assessment rate.
Okay,
That
all
total,
right.
total revenue.
As long as it's adequate.
Yeah, and I believe that it is. As a matter of fact, we were able to, even though we were able to collect more, it was kept at a lower rate as long as, and we stayed within our budget at that lower rate so that it would be less for the property tax payers.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other
Thank you for the
questions?
Yeah,
explanation.
Madam Chair, I got a question. I know in the past, you know, the green pools, that was a big issue. And you know, I could be wrong. I mean, I'm seeing more signs, you know, like, for sale, and I've seen houses being bought. That, the activity should drop, right?
Yeah, it should drop. I mean, some of them are always going to be based on neglect, whether or not they're, the homes are occupied or not.
Right.
Is going to be of some issue. We've even come across where some are using the water in their pool to water their yard, so they're not using it and
Right.
maintaining it as a pool with
Okay.
chlorine. But yeah, we are seeing a change in that, and we're also seeing, for this year, it's been a milder year and a lighter year on complaints. We have not received the complaints like we did last year.
And here's my follow-up question, is that the need for your services is dropping on that subject area. Shouldn't your budget also be dropping, or it's all fixed costs?
I think, you know, we're still maintaining the same service. Like, I think I told you last time, I mean, we treat, you know, over 2,500 storm drains. We treat the cemeteries monthly. We're trapping to analyze the populations of mosquitoes and the type of mosquitoes in the area. That's just kind of an ongoing expense that we have at this point.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
the labor is the same.
Okay, I just don't want to see in, 5 years, 10 years, leave our generation with the $1 million budget that you have, 10 years from now. I just don't want to see that.
I don't think you'll see that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2015-55.
Second, Madam Chair.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to hearing number 28, CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this item was also before your board in our past meeting. This is coming out of our office. We have Sarah Fontanos here to discuss this with your board. This is actually to hold a public hearing to consider the adopting a resolution adopting increases in certain rates set forth in the previously adopted rate schedule for materials accepted at the John Smith landfill. Adopt resolution revising the rate schedule at John Smith landfill and take effect July 21st, 2015, and approve the payment of $250,000 to Waste Connection Group for fiscal year 14-15 COLA and change in law costs. So we have Sarah here to answer any questions, as well as the ad hoc committee with your board. We've been working on this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So yes, as CAO Espinoza stated, there are increases $1.75 each to the following three items: refuse, packer, and residual waste. The thought process behind this being that it would promote more mandated diversion requirements by not only the residents but also the haulers in the county. It's estimated to bring approximately $220,000, which would pay for our COLA and change in law costs. Specifically on this point, I would also like to make sure, once a public hearing is open, to have the board discuss the approval of the budgeted $250,000 payment from fiscal year 14-15 to pay for basically what we owe for COLA. So if there are any questions.
Available questions from the board? Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sarah, so this rate increase is, I know it's not quite across the board, but it is affecting not only local waste, but also the waste that is coming in from out of county?
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, Madam Chair, you know, I love this contract. This is an awesome contract. I mean, we in the private business too, we assume all risk, and we fail and succeed depending how much of risk we assume. And this is guaranteed risk-free contract. They automatically get a COLA increase. They automatically get everything. They shift the entire risk over to the ratepayers, and they assume the entire benefits of it. I'm not going to support this. I'm going to be in protest of this item, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to, at this time, go ahead and open the public hearing and allow people from the public to come up.
Do you have any on record? Is anybody in front of me?
No, I don't. Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to walk up while everybody was speaking. Marty Richmond, good morning from Hollister. Of course, the amount of money moved for refuse hauling is a lot more than is moved for mosquito abatement. So let me talk about it. And you well know, because you've heard me make the speech before, look, we owe what we owe. I didn't draw the contract. Maybe it's a good contract, maybe it's a bad contract. I haven't analyzed it. We owe what we owe. If we owe them $250,000, we're going to pay them. But the question is, where's the money come from? I would think that would be a perfect use of some of that $4.8 million that I personally believe belongs to the enterprise fund. So when I said it belongs to the taxpayers, the enterprise fund, I never assumed, I hope people didn't assume, I thought you would run everybody down and send them a check for $1.15, okay? What I assume is it belongs to the fund. That's just my personal view. I know you're working on that. I think it's a perfect way to pay that $250,000. I think that was fund money. The second issue is I want to thank the county, and I want to thank the people who work out there for the very big benefit, I believe, of the household hazardous waste program that I participated in again on Saturday. And Saturday morning, you go out there 30 minutes before the landfill opens, and the trucks are lined up along John Smith Road, and more than half of them were participating in the household hazardous waste program. And that's done efficiently, and it's done effectively, and the price is free. And that's a big benefit to the county. I think people who live here may not realize that. And so I participated in that because I had some household hazardous waste, and I took it in. And as always, I thought it was done professionally, safety-wise, and the price was right, free. I am concerned about one issue, and I understand we have rules in place. The question is whether we're enforcing it. It was obvious to me that some of the people participating in the household hazardous waste program would be very stretching it to believe that was household waste, okay, and not business waste. Somebody pulls up with an entire pickup truck full of latex paint cans. It's hard for me to swallow that they've just been painting the house, okay? And now, you know, I didn't follow them around to find out if they come back every Saturday every third Saturday with a whole pickup truck full. But I think we ought to reasonably enforce the rules for that, because it's very tempting if you're about to get a big bill to try and, in your business, to try and, not, I don't accusing anybody in particular because I don't know anybody who's doing it, but I think it's very tempting, and I just find it hard to believe that you have a whole pickup truck full of 5-gallon latex and say it's household waste. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty. Any other speaker cards do you have, Clerk? Anyone else from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back for a decision. Okay, I'm going, oh, go ahead.
I see nobody's that anxious to increase landfill rates.
No, and we're not. It's always tough to increase rates for our community.
Yeah.
But I can say this, that Supervisor Munzer and I, you know, in discussing this and meeting, there is in the contract where there is there's room for COLA increase. If there is an increase in the COLA, then that automatically, you know, brings the rates up. There also are costs related to change of law, that if there's a change of law that gives the operator a greater expense because of that, then they have to absorb it, and it has to be absorbed. You know, the cost will have to be increased due to that. But I do want to say that it's designed to promote diversion of waste. And I believe that what it will do, even though it's a little bit higher, people have the opportunity to reduce their own expense by diverting the waste and using more for recycling. The cost does go down for that. So,
Yeah, and you know, I you know, understand where Supervisor De La Cruz is coming from, but the fact of the matter is, all of us who are in business are seeing increased costs for health care, labor, fuel, and everything. And so that we really do have to keep up, and we're not doing a service to the public by not having as minimal of a increase as we possibly can. If you don't ignore it for a year, all of a sudden it becomes a big factor. And so I'm going to support this recommendation from the committee and work that the staff has done on this. I think going forward in the future, maybe we should have maybe a little bit more of an increase for the outside waste and soften the increase for the residents. Maybe that might be something to work on in the future, but I'll make a motion to support Resolution 2015-56.
I will second, and if we could add to the motion, Supervisor Botello, to approve the payment of $250,000 to Waste Solutions.
That's correct. That's included in my motion to approve the payment of $250,000 to Waste Solutions Group, LLC.
And I'll amend my second to include that. So any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, 4-1. Thank you. Thank you. The last public hearing, CAO Espinosa, number 29.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is coming out of our Health and Human Services Department. We have James Writing Sword here to give this particular item. This item is going to be holding a public hearing to hear all objections, protests, and or request changes or corrections to the written report of service charges for County Service Area 36 for fiscal year 15-16 and adopt resolution accepting the annual report for CSA 36 and benefit assessment charges set forth therein and authorize the chair to sign. James?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is kind of an annual public hearing, and as the CAO stated, it is to consider the resolution accepting the report for CSA number 36 for emergency medical services and advanced life support. There are no significant changes that I could find in the report from last year.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I will at this time open the public hearing. Anyone from the public that would like to address the board? on this item? Clerk of the Board, do you have any speaker cards? Okay. There being none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for a decision.
Madam Chair, make a motion to hold a public hearing, sorry about that, hold a public hearing to hear all objections, protests, or request changes or corrections to the written report of service charge for the County Service Area 36 Emergency Medical Service and Advanced Life Support for 15-16, and to adopt resolution accepting the annual report for CSA 36 and benefit assessment charges set forth within and authorized chair to sign said.
Okay, could you give the number of the resolution, please?
Resolution number is 2015
Yes.
2015-57.
Okay, there's a motion?
As
And-
incorporated in the motion.
Okay, and there's a second? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Before we start our regular agenda, I would like to make a request of the board to move, before we start the presentation of the homeless services update, the person that is going to give the presentation for item number 38 is here. Both she and I would like to attend and give our condolences to a family. We have lost a friend, and I'm going to be leaving for a little bit. So if we could move that to now, and then Jim, if you can just start your presentation right after. Is there a consensus of the board to do that? Okay. Then CAO, item number 38.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this item is to hear a presentation from Victoria. I believe United Way is here, right? If you wouldn't mind stepping up. This is to discuss Stuff the Bus program and requesting a transfer of $1,000 from contingency to cover the cost for this request. Wanted to highlight as well to the board that there is another option that we could use if the board does wish to move forward with providing the $1,000 for this program. It is moving expense or being able to take $1,000 out of our budget object number 623628, special department expense, or what was once 180 general contributions. This particular item during our budget process was earmarked for sales tax initiative, which we most likely are still going to move forward, but we do have a little bit of money there most likely we could utilize. We were also considering looking at what our CBO funds would be at the end of the year. The issue with that is the funds are needed now, so that's the reason why we're giving the board a couple of other options. One thing that we did highlight for United Way is that there is a process, there is a CBO process that we initiated this year that we would like them to take advantage, and all other nonprofits to take advantage of the following year, which will go through a similar evaluation like we did this year, and request those nonprofits to apply for the grant. This is obviously a special case. She was not aware of it, so we were coming before your board today on the recommendation of the board to bring this item to you today. So
Yes. Vicki, if you could just...
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to all the supervisors. I am Vicki Fortino with United Way, the coordinator for San Benito County. This is our third year of our United Way initiative for youth success called Stuff the Bus. We have grown it in the last 3 years. From the first year, we gave out close to 100 backpacks that were donated all by San Benito County residents and others outside of the county. The second year, we grew that to 700 backpacks. Our goal this year is to try to supply 1,000 backpacks. It's especially important this year because our County Office of Education Homeless Liaison did not get their funding for school supplies for the homeless children. There are about 500 of them in the county. So it becomes more crucial that we supply the backpacks for this population as well. as the other needy kids. United Way believes that every child should start school prepared to succeed, and that includes having the supplies they need to be successful. We work with the County Office of Education. This is not a fundraiser for the United Way. It is a youth success initiative. Every dollar that is raised is spent on school supplies and backpacks. We buy in bulk from Kits for Kids that probably a lot of people are aware of. And we have a opportunity for volunteers to come and help us stuff the backpacks. The County Office of Education supplies a bus. We ask for any volunteers that would like to come and help us to come and stuff the supplies into the backpacks, and then we put them on the bus. This year, every school district is included in this initiative. So last year, we were able to give supplies to every single school. The rural schools received every bit that they needed. Some wanted 30, some needed 5, because there's some that are way out. So every school district was impacted and did receive backpacks full of supplies. Our goal is that these children have these supplies before school starts. So in cooperation with the Hollister School District and the San Juan Aromas superintendent, they are going to supply vouchers this year for the students as soon as we give them a number of where our dollars are and how many how many supplies we can order. They're going to send out letters to the neediest children that they've qualified. That is not the United Way's job. That comes specifically from the school districts and principals themselves. I believe they reached out to their teachers before the end of school and asked for lists. So the homeless children would be our first priority. The foster youth of San Benito County would be second, and then the neediest students from there. So they will get this voucher. The rural schools are going to pick up their supplies that day that we stuff the bus, which is August 8th. And then the students that want to, that have their vouchers, can come anytime after 11 while we're stuffing and get their backpacks so that they can have them before school starts. So we're very conscientious about not getting the red and blue packs and a multitude of colors so that there is no stigma that these are the free backpacks. They're very good quality and stuffed with a lot of supplies. So we're very proud of it and hope that you would support it.
Vicki, thank you. Any questions from the board? Comments?
I guess a comment. It is a very worthwhile program. I think that's what education is the a step that we all have to take to have success in life. I'm just kind of concerned about doing this from the at this point from the board. It's unbudgeted, and we have nonprofits come forward during budget hearings, and that's where it makes it real tough, that setting a precedence here. I'm sure the homeless coalition could always use more money. The seniors need more money. The food bank is always struggling, and if we kind of go into this, are we setting a precedent? It's not so much a question for you, Vicki, but more for the board and its philosophy on managing, nonprofit contributions. And that's, I think, where the CAO kind of was wrestling with as far as looking for some sort of mechanism in funding that we don't set this as a precedent. Because next month we'll have somebody else asking for a very worthwhile cause. And I think we've done enough and know each other well enough that, personally, I would feel a lot more comfortable. The 5 of us donate $250 a piece or something like that, and here's your money. And I'll probably make a point to make a contribution to this cause personally. But I don't know if I feel that comfortable at this point in time to do so from a government funding mechanism.
Could I just say that the funds that were not received from the government is for the County Office of Education's homeless liaison, not for the Homeless Coalition. So it was funds that they were using, they have been using in the past to supply backpacks and school supplies. So just so you know.
Just for Supervisor Rivas?
Hey, Vicki, thanks for your presentation. As far as the information on the flyer, as far as sponsorship or a donation, now I'm assuming the website will have that information, and we're able to access all that and make that contribution online?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And all the locations we brought a bus, it's in the back of the room. We have locations all around town so that if people can't give monetarily and want to donate pencils or binders, there's several locations. They're also on the website, and you can call 211 to get that information as well.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor De La Cruz?
I guess Supervisor Teller was thinking the same thing I was thinking. I think that if we open up the door, we will other organizations. So if we're going to do this, then let's just get rid of that subcommittee that makes recommendations to the Board of Supervisors for budget approval, and then have these funds available through the whole year. So when projects come before us, there'll be that money set aside that we can start allocating.
Your points are well taken. Yeah. Supervisor Munzer? Any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was called by one of the board members of the United Way last night, and this is the same thought that came out from the other board members is what I expressed to them. This is the fear of it being precedent setting. I concur with Supervisor Patello that, I'll match his $250 and, let's see if we can just donate it personally and not do it as a government agency.
Yeah, and I understand the concerns of the board, and Vicki, I made her aware that donating is not an issue, it's just process and setting a precedence, and I will follow your lead, and they've got my $250. So anyway,
thank you.
If that is the way and I respect that, and I understand. I will open it up to the public at this time to see if anybody from the public would like to comment.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. Since so many board members brought it up, may I suggest that this situation might indicate that we should change our policy and not do one thing. It's a dynamic situation. A year goes by, people have requirements. They come in normally at the beginning of the year, the budget sessions, and say, this is how much money I'm going to need. Well, it's not a fixed thing. You can't, you close the door and say, okay, we funded everybody we can fund. I understand you don't want to open it up again, and I understand why politically and financially you can't. But what happens is like this. It's not a fixed deal. In other words, you're expecting to get a grant, just like you got last year, let's say, and all of a sudden the grant doesn't show up, and now that becomes an emergency situation or something. So I hope if the board's going to discuss this in the future for other things for everybody, that you would consider changing the way you do it. Maybe we shouldn't do everything. That shouldn't allocate all the funds that we're going to do for nonprofits right at the beginning of the year and just dole them out to everybody before we let the year work its way a little bit and see what the given emergency is. And you might want to set a cap because you don't want to, you got a fiscal responsibility. You might want to set a cap, but you might want to actually dole the funds out, decide who gets what over a period of time, rather than doing it, oh, you didn't show up before the budget hearings. And I understand your problem. You didn't show up when we did at the budget hearings, therefore, there's nothing left as far as public funds go. And I appreciate that. So something we ought to think about changing in the future, because it's a dynamic need situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty, and your points are well taken, and CAO I'll just direct that suggestion to you, if there's any way that we can word for future so that we can have a little bit of an openness. Maybe we receive more dollars than are expected, and we have an opportunity to give at that time, that we do give ourselves that opportunity. So, okay, then I'll go ahead and, because I was the one that brought it forward, I am going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the transfer, knowing that there's probably not going to be a support, but it's just a gesture of formality. So I will make a motion to transfer the 1,000 from contingencies to the CBO program. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay, there's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
3 no, so it's 2, but here's my check.
I'll take it.
All right, so, but I'm sure you understand, right? Okay, we're gonna, thank you.
My check will be in the mail, Vicki.
I have to get, and I will send a check too.
Okay.
What we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break before the item number 30, and I will leave for a few minutes, and Supervisor Rivas will take over after we come back from the break. 10 minutes for a break.
10 minutes sharp.
Okay, you got it. Oh, boy.
On a mission.
Note that you'd like Tom.
All right, so we will go ahead and commence on our regular agenda with item number 30 out of Health and Human Services Agency, Mr. Riding-Sward, which is review and accept the homeless services update. So Jim, take it away.
All right. In June, the board asked us to bring a homeless service update back to the board, and so that's what we're doing today. We're going to go through a series of slides here for you, and within those slides, there we'll be discussing issues that relate to items 31, 32, 33, and 34. And so when we're done with the items, we'll ask the board to come back on 31 through 34 and consider those items, okay? All right? Well, first of all, let's see now, how do I get that off of there? Okay. We can't let the moment pass to say that we have some champions in the area and also at the national level. So. Yeah, and we have a sumo champion. So, in 2011, San Benito County joined the county, the Salinas, Monterey, San Benito County Continuum of Care. And that's been a good relationship, and it's also a relationship that we need to maintain in order to access different funds and grants that we can be eligible for as we move forward in this process. Just to let the board know, because of that, we received $216,950 for the Helping Hands program, about $50,000 for winter shelter program, about $175,000 for the Homeless Coalition, and we use about $10,000 for hotels, vouchers, and tokens. The purpose of the coalition and mission is to eliminate homelessness in Monterey and San Benito County. So I want to share with you just some champions from around the country who have been helped through homeless programs as we go through this presentation. You asked for an encampment update. We've held meetings with the city, and we've discussed this at the Homeless Planning Committee. And as of today, we have portable potties installed out at the encampment. We have debris bins installed. The city has put up signage, and my understanding is there is a locked gate out there now. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. And so we recognize that these efforts are to help the situation as it currently exists, but we want to work with the city and the county on long-term solutions.
Mr. Chair, Intern Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So
I take it the city is paying for the portable potties and the debris bins.
The portable potties are paid for out of Health and Human Services.
Okay.
Okay, under our community services program, and the debris bins
or through our contract with landfill.
Are through our contract with landfill.
All right. Then why is the city leading that effort? What are they doing?
Maybe we misspoke that. We're working together on that. But the city is very involved. They've asked us to come and present to them at their first meeting in August. As I understand, at that meeting, they will be considering issues around homeless services. So maybe the word lead is a little misnomer.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we're leading it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, Supervisor, thank you.
Okay. This is the general who was living outside of Union Station in Washington, D.C., before and after. And now we want to do a quick review of the homeless census executive summary. I'm going to ask Enrique to come up and kind of walk through these slides with you.
Thank you very much. The official point-in-time census took place on the 28th of January, and I wanted just to highlight a couple of the points that came out of the executive summary report. There was an increase in the homeless count. A point in time is any homeless that was visually observed as homeless that morning of. There was an increase from 365 from the 2013 census to 651 in this year's census. There's also a finding that 86% of the homeless population in San Benito County have lived.
Hold on one second. We have a question. Supervisor Munzer?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Enrique, there was one presentation, I think early on the count of the homeless, in which the people doing the counting, they counted X amount of people and then used a multiplier factor to come up with a different amount. So you're saying there's 651 people that you have been observed as homeless, or that multiplying factor was used again?
No, this does not include the multiplier factor. I did call the research company that did this study, and they will get back to us with that multiplier factor. So it does not include the multiplier
Well, I don't trust the multiplier factor. So the 651 were observed people?
Yes, that
by,
morning of.
by your volunteers? that were
Exactly.
out there? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
So, let's see the next point here. That 86% of the homeless population in San Benito County have lived in this county, and then from those 86%, 71% have lived in the county for more than 5 years. There's also finding that 23% report they are first-time homeless, having lived here for more than 1 year. So the study goes on. I think it's a really good, concise report that depicts the homeless community in this county. So I wanted to just share those few points. And I have copies of this homeless census in the back for those that would like to get a copy.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Sure.
Just another question, and I don't know if it's for Jim or Enrique. There's always rumors that our neighboring counties love to bring their homeless to us and place them inside our borders. That rumor cropped up again here recently. Do you see any truth to that rumor? Are you seeing, in here, it sounds like when you say 80% of the homeless were residents of our county.
Yeah.
So that seems to dispels that. You're not hearing any
No.
or not seeing any.
No, in fact, I talk with my fellow directors around the state, monthly, and this is one of the topics that comes up. I mean, we don't do this in the business. We take care of our own, and we deal with the people that live in our county. Again, this report shows that 86% of the people that are homeless in San Benito County have been in San Benito County for a period, fairly significant periods of time. We also want to, focus on those who are chronically homeless, and those are the ones that have disabling conditions, and there's about 200 of those, and so that's a lot of what we will focus on in terms of the efforts. And you can see here the subpopulation chronically homeless. There's about 200 individuals. Veterans, there's 38 individuals. Families, there's about 30 families that were reported. And transitional age use, there were about 77 reported. So we know that within the sub-count of this is, these are the numbers that we're looking at. And as we move forward, we want to focus on trying to deal with those areas. This is Bob. He's a veteran. And we also, as you know, received a CDBG grant this last year in the amount of $1.5 million. I want to invite Joe to come up, and I noticed on the agenda, there's an item about Joe being with us in the future, and I have to tell you, he has been just a pleasure to work with. The knowledge he brings to the table and his ability to look at things. I just want to really compliment Joe on what he has done, you know, to help us work through this.
All right, now we'll get to the real stuff. So one of the real challenges with doing a facility like this is you have kind of a chicken and egg. Are you building a facility and then finding an operator? Are you finding an operator and then building a facility? We originally started with the thought that we had the CDBG grant, and we were going to go build a facility, and then we'd go find ourselves an operator. And the more we've kind of looked at it and kind of looked at how some other shelters have been put together over the years, especially looking at what San Luis Obispo, they're working on their facility, and we're using their architect to help us in the programming design of this facility, have started thinking about we really should find a really good operator to run this facility and have them partner up with a construction arm to actually go build the facility, because at the end of the day, it will do us no good to build a building, not have the right operator, and worse yet, find the right operator and say the building we built really doesn't fit to how the business really runs. So as we've kind of been mulling that over, one of the things that in talking with the state about the CDBG grant, they gave us, kind of pointed us in direction, said that we should maybe think a little bit differently about the CDBG grant, and then rather than using it as a direct kind of investment in to go build it, was to think about it as a recoverable grant, forgivable loan, kind of whatever you want to talk about, but really focused on how to encourage the right operator to come into a project like this and have seed money for them, which was what the goal was this for all along, but put kind of teeth in it to make sure that you don't go through build a building, get somebody on board, and then they disappear in 2 years because it really does, it's not a sustainable fiscal model that's going on. And so what we're thinking about is using the grant, about 1.2, 1.3 of it, actually as a zero interest, essentially, loan that would go away if they operated the facility for, say, 15 years or so, that we've got long-term affordability that operates it. It just basically goes away, and it allows an operator, besides the land that we're looking at putting into the project, to actually then have capital or kind of equity built into this that allows them on a sustained basis to actually go through and have a facility that is more free and clear. So we're looking at that, and it's one of the things we're looking for thoughts from the board today. Are you comfortable with us kind of looking at a little bit different way? The state actually has done this in a number of other agencies. I think that's what's going with the food bank. Yes. As right here in Hollister is a similar sort of thing, is that if it operates for a set amount of time, it accrues to them, the operator. So it's one that we have flexibility of how best to use. But, again, trying to think about creativity, we want to go through and make sure all options are on the table.
Okay. Supervisor, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of a different concept than what I envision, and a different path, and I hope we're not be making that decision today. I really think we need to see more information as far as how the center would be ran, and kind of in my mind, we have the site, we identified the site, we clean it up, have it well contained, well managed, even if it's a public and nonprofit partnership relationship to operate the facility, to make sure that we're able to convey the services that Health and Human Services have, bring in money, if they're veterans, incorporate some of those benefits as well, and take advantage of that, and still depend on our faith groups, our nonprofits that are already established in our community, and hopefully they grow. But we kind of keep our, oversight on the facility and control of it. And that's one of the things that, concerns me with the, even with in the neighborhood, If we don't own the facility, then we lose control of it, we lose the access of services, and I kind of would like to see and witness other counties, how they're doing it. You know, sometimes the state gets out there, and what happens in the Emerald City really doesn't pertain to here, you know, and you know, it's a little.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned about these changes, and I'm happy that you're explaining, both you and.
No, and that's part of what we want to go through and cover today and kind of walk through some of that. And absolutely, at the end of the day, whether the county owns the facility and brings in an operator, whether we own it and we partially operate it and others, or we are kind of the bank and let others kind of own and operate. At the end of the day, we still need to have the accountability for the facility. So whether that's accountability to ourselves or accountability to an operator, owner of a facility, of what it means to actually run a shelter and provide services. And HHSA is very much, under any one of those models, invested in providing service delivery at the facility. The veterans groups, and we've been working hard with them to make sure they're programmed in to being able to deliver services, and all the different nonprofits. Is part of what we're trying to figure out is what's the best way to do it, in some ways to deliver the best product, with also doing some risk assessment on our side. Because at the end of the day, I think the board's been very clear that you don't want to go through and have an ongoing general fund obligation back to a facility like this. So we're working from what we can put into the deal to essentially capitalize the facility. And we'll talk some more this morning about operating dollars, but how to go, at the end of the day, how to not become the deep pockets for the continual operations of a facility like this. So that's kind of the big grinding principle for us.
Yeah, I'll have probably some more questions a little bit later on in the presentation.
Okay, yeah.
This is Penny. All right, so let's talk about the Homeless Service Center location. Currently, your board has directed us to draw up plans that would have the homeless center go on property that is located near the old hospital on South Side Road. We've held a series of meetings. We meet every month with the Homeless Services Planning Committee. In fact, in December, there was a community meeting with local businesses and members of the board where sites were discussed. And then on February the 3rd, your board selected this site. And I'm going to ask Joe to come up and talk a little bit about the makeup of the site.
Sure. So this is the county hospital property. What you see there with the number 2, the triangle, is the parking lot out in the front portion of the property. What you see is number 3 is the slope area that's behind it and the landscaping along the back edge. So the dark brown. That's the buffer back to the existing single-family homes. And we think that is an important consideration, that we really need to be facing out the South Side Road. We are looking at how to phase development on the property because of the challenges with the current hospital building and getting that torn down. We'll talk a little bit more in a bit about what we're doing to tear that down. But we do think there's a site that's big enough to accommodate the shelter facility that we think is the right size for the county, that could fit on that triangle piece. So that's what we've engaged an architect out of Salinas that is working with us. They've brought in the architect who's doing the project in San Luis Obispo that is very well received. So we're going to essentially scale that to what we need and then test that back against what services we're trying to deliver, the dollars we have available to deliver those services and sustain that, and to go see what we can actually do on this property. So that's the piece we're spinning up on right now, is the program economic feasibility piece of it. Once we know that there's something really there, Then we'll go through and go on the formal public process, the environmental review process, and all of those steps of the community engagement that are really important for a project like this. We want to see, though, first, is there really something that works here? And so that's the piece we're under right now.
Hey, Joe, I do have a question related to location. I know that we had an initial, a public session where we said, hey, this is our desirable, site for us, and now that I look back at it, it wasn't extensive. We probably should have had 1 or 2 more hearings to properly vet out this location. And the reason I say that is because this site is, it's the way the property is, it's a liability to the county. We know it's a contaminated site, but we don't really know the true extent of that contamination. As I see, there's an agenda item number 33 where, we're going to apply for a grant application of the $75,000, what I'm assuming is they're going to review the site. And clearly moving forward, we can't even build a center because of the liability issues without understanding the extent of the contamination. So if you can,
walk you through that?
Yeah, if you can walk us through kind of the history of, the extent that, our understanding of this site and the impacts.
Right. So we have done a building and site assessment that was done a couple of years ago. It actually was 3 separate reports that were done looking at the main hospital and then the outbuildings. In that report, it identified that there were a number of materials, asbestos predominantly, that was found in the building. The main hospital predominantly in wrap for piping, for insulation that was underneath the buildings that has deteriorated and now is in the soil underneath the building. There's also asbestos in some of the floor tile that's in the main building, and one of the outbuildings has some asbestos in it, and that's why we're not doing any demolition on that particular outbuilding. We've stayed away from it. So we do have that baseline. The challenge is we're now going out to compete for grants for the demolition of this building. Those grant agencies are looking for more recent assessments. So Jose's been working with us to go and put together a good competitive package so that we can go out through the brownfield projects to try and obtain grant monies to take the buildings down. And that's what we're asking for. The other thing that we are asking for, the boundary of the project that's item 33, is not just the hospital site. It also includes the quarry across the road where the county has dumped material that we've collected along the roadways, mostly like landslide materials. But that's dumped back in, and we want to make sure that we don't have anything over there because there is now interest to potentially doing some development on that property. And then we're going to look at including the rest of the migrant center. So it's kind of a larger zone that we've bubbled in that we would look at with this assessment dollars, not just the hospital.
Mr. Vice Chair, I know we need to spend those monies to do the assessment, but I know a location that doesn't have any of those issues. Anyway.
We don't know that they don't have it.
Well, if I could just comment on that, it seems to me that at least the board may want to consider, no matter where you decide to site the homeless service center, I think the board, there's some momentum here, and the board should probably want to consider trying to move forward with cleaning up that property out there, no matter what you decide to use it for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so one of the items we'll be asking you to consider later is the $75,000 grant that gets that assessment done. Once we get the assessment done, then we can go and look for funding to clean up the sites. You also asked about homeless center operations. So we've been doing some work on this. We're assuming that at some point in time the operation of the site will be done by a nonprofit. We've never assumed that the county would actually run the site itself. We're working on the assumption that this will be a 24-hour, 365-day site that will be not only a service center but a shelter program.
Hey, Jim, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you one more time. And so when was that decision made? Because this is a board that approved a resolution for a day center I want to say it was in late 2013, for a day center and then a winter shelter operation. So when was this 24-hour, 365-day operation? When was that decision made?
I can't tell you exactly when that was done. I can say to you that that has been part of our presentation all along.
Okay, well, maybe we have to dig through, I was just digging through minutes yesterday. Maybe we have to get the resolution before this
Okay.
board, because that wasn't the case.
Okay.
And that is, that's a concern.
Okay.
So, moving forward.
Well, those are things, for the board to consider is
Yes.
how that's operated and what you want it to look like.
Mr. Chair, Jim, when you mean by local funding, that's not general fund allocation, right? That's
No.
grant money and things like
No.
that? Okay.
No, it's not general fund allocation. In fact, what we're going to be asking for later is for you to give us approval to move forward with initial funding that can be used for operation. It's called intergovernmental fund transfer. And we've done the work on putting it together in terms of a study as to whether we're eligible to get those funds or not. We are eligible to get those funds, and so what we'll be asking the board to consider later is to give us the authority to move forward with those funds. That will bring in a net gain of federal funds of $155,000 this year, which can be set aside for whatever kind of operation we want to do on a homeless center. That's also funding that is available on an annual basis. Other counties have done this process and benefited from it. So that will go, if we move forward with that, that will give us some initial non-county general fund funding. We've been having conversations with the city of Hollister. We're going to talk to the city of Hollister on their first meeting in August. And they've given indication that they want to support the efforts, and we'll see what they move forward with. But when we say local funding, we're looking at least from a Health and Human Services perspective, going out and finding funding sources that do not impact the county general fund.
Supervisor Munzer has a question. Jim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And going back to what Supervisor Rivas brought up, and Jim and I met last Friday, and we discussed the homeless shelter, and he brought up the fact that it was going to be a 24/7, 365, and I said the exact same thing that Supervisor Rivas said, that I was telling the public whenever I talked to him that it was essentially going to be a day center with a winter shelter.
Right.
So I think we do need to make sure this board has bought off on the concept of a 24/7 shelter.
All right, so we don't have an item like that on the agenda today.
No,
so
I understand
if it's
that, but
something you want us to bring back for discussion, we can certainly do that.
Yes.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, Madam Chair, so the decision, the resolution I was referring to was a resolution that was approved by our board. Looks like April. It was resolution 2014-29. So maybe we can pull that and I could look at that. But I believe that was an action we took where we said it was going to be a day center and it was going to be a winter shelter. And so how we morphed into this 24-hour day function for 365, that's a huge, it's a huge difference. It's a significant impact. It was, I was assuming this whole time that we were going to have a day center and that, it would be a public-private partnership potentially.
Right.
But now that you're talking about a 24-hour center, 365 days, of course it can't be a public-private partner. You're going to have to contract this to work out because we don't have the means to staff that and do it.
Okay.
And so I just want to know, how did this change? When did we become a 365-day operation without any kind of decision before this board?
All right.
And the reason I mention it is it's a source of frustration because I heard it come from Mayor Ignacio Velasquez. Mayor Ignacio Velasquez isn't on this board. And it's just very frustrating.
All right.
So I think we've got to figure it out, especially when it's going to affect our bottom line and our budget.
Yeah, and I agree. you know, if that's a point of confusion for the board, then we need to come back and get that clarified in a public setting.
And I want to add to this, and I agree with you that it can be, you know, if you're not sure about what it was or where we're going, that you do need to be informed, hence our meeting today, to make sure that you get all the firsthand information from our Health and Human Services Director. But keep in mind also that what we're moving forward with and the idea is generated by need. And the need is beyond just a day reporting center, you know, because initially it had the beds, so obviously there were going to be people staying there. But you're right, you probably thought it was only going to be during the winter months. But it's evident as we move forward. And remember that the committee that has been meeting regularly is made up of just a slew of community agencies that are familiar with the issues and the need of what we have to provide for these homeless folks. In not just a place for them to live, but programs and counseling and food, and I mean, the list is long. So, but I think as we move forward, you will become more and more in tune with what's happening, as we do, because it's a very grueling process. So correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but it has been from a lot of input from community members, and also a survey that was done of what the needs were for the homeless folks.
Yeah, but I have to agree with Supervisor Rivas. If the board, you know, is not clear in their mind on what the direction is here, I think that we need to bring an item back for full discussion on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's necessary, and we all need to make sure that even though perhaps it may not affect the general fund bottom line, because we're going to try to do partnerships and get grant money, but we still are investing the 1.5 million that has come from the state. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Listening to my fellow supervisors, and I understand the concerns and their points, but at the same time, we shouldn't rule out any and all options, and it needs to originate here. I totally agree with that concept. Originate here and start from here, and then dictate to the committee or to the groups that's meeting to talking about it. But just focus on the day operation and say that's what we're doing. I think we're kind of selling ourselves short. We should really look at everything and start here and then go from there.
Ready to move on? This is Eddie. We've also been meeting with the Council of Governments, and Mary has joined our homeless planning committee and is actively participating in that. And so, you know, we've established some goals on how we can begin to provide transportation services to a homeless service center. Wild Bill. And then part of what we have been discussing, and again, there has been no decisions made on this by the board, is the whole issue of workforce development. It seems to us that if you're going to do something, part of what you want to do is to help people go back to work. So we have consultants from the California Community Economic Development Association who were in town last week and met with the Homeless Services Planning Committee, and then met with a smaller group of us over breakfast the next day to kind of talk about, you know, what are the things that are available there. We hope to do that work in conjunction with the Workforce Investment Board. At this point in time, we're not asking the board to make any decisions in this area. Sylvia. And then we've also been talking about the need for low-income housing in the community. And we have met with both CHISBA and the Community Services Development Corporation to talk with them about, you know, what's possible, what could be done, is there an interest and so forth. We've talked in the neighborhood of 500 low-income units in the next 5 to 10 years. We think that in this particular effort, and again, we're not asking the board to make any decisions on this today, but we think that it would be good for the board's facilities committee to sit down and begin to have those discussions to formulate both a short-term and a long-term policy in this area. Patricia? And then potential other funding. We have Jose Vasquez, who works with us in terms of pursuing funding and grants, and there's a long list of potential funding from various federal foundation and state resources that can be available to help us as we go forward. So we just wanted to have you see that list of things that we think are possible ways to move forward with funding, particularly for the long-term operation of a center. So today, we're asking the board to consider these 4 items, and they're the next 4 items on your board's agenda. The first item is to review and accept the 2015 Homeless Census Executive Report, which we showed you the summary earlier on in this presentation. The second item is to review and approve consideration of options for the use of the CDBG grant. The third item is authorization to submit a $75,000 grant application for environmental assessment. And then the fourth option is approval to move forward with the intergovernmental fund transfer. So that's the end of our report, and unless there are further questions right now, you know, we want to move forward into the next items.
Thank you, Jim. Great presentation. Do you want to get the lights? Okay. Do we have any other questions at this time of Jim before we open it up to the public? Okay. Any speaker cards?
We do, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The first speaker is Mr. David Crandall,
Okay.
on number 33.
Thank you. I hear a lot of concerns about contamination and staffing and other subjects, but I don't hear any concern for our neighborhood. And I fear our security and sanctity of our neighborhood is at stake. I live directly below this place, and there's a bird's eye view of all of many backyards and neighborhood in general. You know, loss of privacy. Literally, you know, my wife likes to lay out. I have young daughters. I have serious concerns. I mean, you'd have to be crazy. I mean, granted, there's some homeless people out there that are fantastic. I don't doubt that. But in general, you know, it doesn't sit well with me at all. You know, we're surrounded by the river as it is, and there's already homeless activity down there. Now, bringing a full-time shelter there will increase that activity more so. Maybe they don't, you know, check in. Maybe they have friends there. Maybe they're not part of that deal. But that's just a fact that we would have more homeless activity in there. Most of our neighborhood, it's a working class community. You know, most guys are at work when there'd be, you know, constant homeless activity around our neighborhood. That's unsettling. Not, you know, I don't think anybody would like that. Many young children with their families, including myself. You know, it's a real, like I say, working class community there. Tons of kids everywhere. The bus stop would sit right there on the corner of that property where you want the shelter to be, you know. I'm sorry, but I don't think that's safe. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think, you know, literally not my backyard. Well, it is my backyard. I mean, my backyard's not suitable for society's ills. I don't feel like it should be. You know, we should have been on the ball with this thing earlier. I didn't really realize what was going on, but now I do. A lot of people I talk to in the neighborhood, they have to be at work and things like that. I mean, I can come back later on and present a petition with, I think everybody supports it in the neighborhood, that they don't want it there. And I can do that and be back at a later date. I know there are other locations that were in consideration, like San Felipe, which is right in close proximity to services that the homeless population already, you know, use. And I'm just not sure why we got away from that. Now, is that in your district?
Yes, it is.
Is there a reason why it's not being
Well,
considered?
some of the reasons that were expressed is it's agriculture, and there was contracts and things that may not have been renewed because of the possibility of, folks being on that. Some of this farm growers or crop growers are very particular about.
Yeah, I know the area. They're on the backside. Most of the people, that population already,
So it was concerned about primarily that. So.
you understand the population already goes there for their services as it is, and they don't interfere with the agricultural land, which is on the backside of San Felipe. And they tend to walk along San Felipe, actually work in that area, and see them all the time. So they're already in that area. I think from a service standpoint, if, this is really about the homeless, I think it would be much better for them to be already in that type of situation where they're already in that area constantly. They're on that side of town already. It just seems crazy to me to split it off into our neighborhood. I think I would invite you guys to walk the site and take a look at the
We have.
landscape there.
I think every one of us
And-
has already walked.
And you know what I'm talking about how close it is. I mean, can we look at other locations like San Felipe or the old jail, or is there any other options? I don't think, this is just crazy to me that you want to drop a homeless center. I think it's really insulting. I think majority of our neighborhood are Hispanic. I think it takes a discriminatory tone. I think it's racist to want to drop a homeless shelter in a Hispanic neighborhood. I don't appreciate that. That's just my thoughts. You can disagree. Would this thing be built next to Ridgemark? Or, I don't think so. I know they wouldn't stand for that in a second. I think it's fiscally, there's impacts there on my property values. I don't know who would want to buy my house next to a shelter. I would have never bought the thing 15 years ago if I knew this would be happening. I don't know anybody in our neighborhood who would, It's just crazy to me that this is happening. We work hard for what we have, and you're wanting to kind of take our hard work at the expense of other guys who don't work. And granted, like I said, there's some good people, but I just think it's unfair. If we have to,
Could summarize, please?
Oh, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I waited a long time, so I'll say my piece. If we have to, we'll pool our money together for a lawyer. I hope we don't have to. It'd be a waste of the county money, it'd be a waste of our money, a waste of our time. I don't feel like it should be necessary for us to go further and put out further expenditures to keep our neighborhood safe from our own county government, elected and paid for by our own hard work. If needed, I'll go through and air a negative campaign against this and do everything we can. But I'll come back later on with a petition with signatures from the entire neighborhood. Basically, I can tell you, I didn't find anybody who would support this thing. We're very limited here with people speaking out against this. Nobody was really aware of it, but now we are. And
Well, thank you very much.
there'll be more to come, and we're not going to go silently against this. We'll fight it tooth and nail, and if need be, we'll go legal, if need be. And I hope that's not the case, but I hope other people would support Jerry in voting no. And I hope you would reconsider your location. If you like the project so much, then maybe we can look at San Felipe again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please consider that.
Any other comments from the public? Pardon? Okay.
We have a parent, Maribel Cortez, and two students, Consuelo Cortez and Vanessa Flores.
Hi, my name is Maribel Cortez, and I live where this homeless center shelter is planned for the site. I've lived here for 4 years. I was raised here. My parents were farm workers as well, so we've lived way before 40 years. I used to live in the west side of Hollister, where they used to call HVH. That was my home side, until I built myself home in this area in Southside. Now, I wasn't aware that it is contaminated land, but now I am. I mean, there's a lot of other issues that came upon, which are very important. I'm sure that the group of workers that build our self-homes that were located now in this area where this proposed homeless center and shelter is planned for, in the single homes back then, like, my former neighbor, mentioned, if I would have known that a shelter was being planned or to be built there. I mean, we worked so hard in building these self-home, self-housing at that time. We've been there for about 13 years or so, and I know that all my neighbors were all farm workers. We come from low-income families, middle class, some. And at one point, we were also homeless, you know, and that's why we qualified for these home. I'm now a former teacher. I work for the Hollister School District also. I've been a preschool teacher for 20 years. And my issue is not so much of, you know, the homeless, you know, people living there. It's just that safety issue. Now, I want to tell you all that I've experienced. Now, my home is right next to the hospital road. It's all faced on side to the river. And I've had a few issues with homeless people now that we have some homeless people living in the river. In the past year or so, I've experienced, you know, homeless people, you know, stealing my dog's collar. Unpleasant experiences such as, you know, looking over my yard, my backyard, where I have my children playing. You know, it's just something that I would really like for you to reconsider. I'm here to advocate for my neighbors that right now they're working either in the San Benito Foods Cannery, or they're in the fields, you know. So I know that, you know, they were here, they wanted, their intention was to be here to speak up, but I know they weren't available. They need to provide food to their table. So I really would like for you to reconsider, you know, the location. I know there's other areas where these homeless people could be, you have more resources, you know, more appropriate for them and included in a closer site. My fear as a parent, as any parent, I'm sure you've been a parent, you've been a grandparent, uncle, aunt, I'm sure everybody would agree with me, is that, you know, our fear is our safety for our children. And we do have a lot of children, neighborhood children, you know, playing around.
If you could summarize, please.
I would like for you to reconsider, please, the location. I am sure that, you know, at some point you have experienced some kind of fears. And my issue is about my safety of my children and the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you turn in a speaker card?
Yes.
She did. Okay, so all three of you did? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Hi, I am a student at San Benito High School, and as mentioned before, the stop sign is, well, the bus stop is like right next to the location where the homeless shelter is to be built, and I just do not feel safe walking all the way there and then just waiting. I mean, anyone can just approach me or rob anything from me. I do not feel safe with that. And as mentioned before, there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood. They're almost always playing outside. Anyone can just go and, well, I'm not saying that all homeless people are bad people, because I know I've seen a lot of very nice people, but I've also seen some that have been just knocked out in the street because of drug abuse or they were too drunk, and I don't think that's a good influence for the kids ever see that. Or, yeah, the main concern is my safety and the safety of the rest of my neighbors that couldn't be here today. And that's just to summarize it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Consuelo. I'm a sophomore at San Benito High School. Earlier today, it was stated that health was one of the most important things somebody can have, and I think we can agree that safety is too. Like Vanessa, I take the bus to school, and I feel that it's very unsafe to have a homeless shelter there. With all due respect, not a single soul here has the right to take our safety away. No one can, or our safety or privacy. We feel that it is very unsafe, and it's just not okay. You guys mentioned that there's...
You need to talk to the board, please. Thank you.
You guys mentioned that they were disabled condition. There's homeless people with disabled conditions. Well, why not put them somewhere where there's resources? Why where it's too far away for resources? Because it is a long distance. And you can't ignore the fact that there are homeless people who are drug addicts, who are been arrested somehow, who have been in legal trouble. And if the homeless shelter is there and something happens to us, innocent children, would Hollister really want to be known as the city who could have prevented that incident, and who actually paid for it to happen? Because I know I wouldn't want to live in a town like that. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other speaker cards? Okay. Yeah, I'll invite anybody else from the public.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. I don't have any ideas on solving this problem. It's a multifaceted problem. I think one of the big dangers is to simplify it, oversimplify it, and say, well, it's just if we find some shelter for people, that would really help. Yeah, everything would really help. But also, at yesterday's meeting at the Hollister City Council, we had a couple of people stand up and talking about how the homeless encampment down at the river was affecting them personally in stolen products and having their land and buildings being invaded. So we understand that homelessness is a complex problem, and that some of the homeless have problems that we can't solve just by getting them shelter. We can't solve it just by, if they have drug and alcohol problems, we can't. If they have no skills, we're not going to find them a job. I know we can try like hell, but you're not really going to do it. We have people with skills here that can't find a job, and we have people here who can't afford a reasonable rent, that can't find a reasonable rent, so it's a complex problem. And I'm also very disappointed that some of the remarks, and I'm always up for a good political fight, but I just don't think this is a good subject for one. I'm always willing to combat you guys politically, and the city, you know that. I'm not afraid of any of you. But this is not a good subject for political fight, and I'm disappointed in some of the remarks, like about worrying about who's got the leadership position, or who suggested that it ought to be around the clock, that it was the mayor, whatever. Look, we all got concerns. The idea that the city has no nickel in this is ridiculous, because they've got their own homeless problems, and many times the encampments are in the city, not just in the county. So I would hope you guys would just take a step back, because it's obvious that we've run up to the precipice here, and people are uncomfortable with whatever, because they don't like other people suggesting we ought to do this or we ought to do that. I think you ought to take a step back and you know, if the county and the city can't work hand in glove to solve this, it is not going to get solved. I don't care how much money you put into it. I don't care how much good intent you have. This is one area where you're in it together whether you like it or not. And I suggest that you guys take a step back and sit down with the city, sing Kumbaya, whatever you got to do on this one issue, and get organized as to this one issue and talk through the impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Any other comments from the public? Pat?
Thank you, Chair and Board. My name is Pat Lowe, and I'm Chair of the Homeless Coalition. I am here today speaking as Chair of the Homeless Coalition. What I'm going to present is from the coalition itself. It's my personal opinion. I think, and I have met with Jim, so I don't think he'll be surprised at anything I say this morning. One of the big issues that we've come into contact with, and Jim, because he has wanted to, staff has wanted to kind of change this from where it originally started and run it as a 24/7 operation, 365 days a year. We, as the coalition, have gone out and met with people that would be maybe able to build this, different 503Cs, and I've also personally met with some financial people just to see how it would all play out numbers-wise. One of the bigger issues that has cropped up and continues to be a huge stumbling block is the old hospital and the liability of that hospital. And I really believe that the county has talked about this for many, many years. Obviously, it's 12 years that I know of. And no matter what happens as we go forward with this homeless service center, the hospital has got to be taken at its own risk factor. And that hospital has got to be torn down, and that site has got to be cleaned up, no matter what. And so I think lumping it together with this just kind of convolutes it. If the day center doesn't go there, that hospital still has to come down, and it has to come down as soon as possible. It just cannot be the... I drove by there the other day, and I was shocked at what was painted on the side of that. And you drive down that road, you've got high school children there waiting for a bus. We just don't need that blight in our community. And to think that's a county building is something I don't think any of you want the recognition of. The other thing, since this project has moved in the directions it moved, the coalition itself cannot take on the responsibility of a 24/7 operation. Obviously, we're too small. And for us to make that decision today and say we can do it, we can't. Now, as this moves forward, we maybe can get involved with some partnerships. There's a lot of different things, resources we'd like to look at. But to make any kind of commitment to be involved in this project now, other than a helping hand, is impossible for us. You know, and some of these other things we've discussed, like the new building that's going up in San Luis Obispo, which we've seen the architecture renderings and drawing, it's beautiful. But it's I believe it's a $4 million project. So we obviously can't put ourselves at that scope, I guess is the best way to phrase it. And, you know, the coalition, we truthfully want to be involved. We truthfully want to help. We have a huge volunteer base. But for it to be run 24/7 is beyond our scope. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? No more speaker cards? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. And this was, we're on number 30, so it's to review and accept the homeless services update. So we have received it. Joe, I mean, Jim, if you can, I call Jim Joe and Joe Jim.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Madam Chair, yeah, I was kind of a little confused because somehow we kind of jumbled everything all together.
Well, it's all connected,
Okay,
you
fair
know,
enough.
and so that's why the speakers that thought the opportunity would be okay to speak now. But there are other items, you're
Okay,
right, that are.
Then, Madam Chair, then with your blessing, I'd like to give just brief comments, hearing from the public. I was one of the supervisors that I even say, you know, has the people in that project, have they been informed? Why aren't they here talking to the public? Because I even say, you know, it's going to be a big issue for members of that community, and I'm so surprised that no one showed up, and I'm glad that they're here today to listen, you know, to hear them. And, you know, I even advocated for the one, you know, by San Felipe to be built out there. But, you know, eventually I moved and say, okay, let's move forward the hospital. And former Supervisor Lowe, you know, does bring some good issues and concerns, you know, separate the issues because it is a liability issue. I don't know. I don't know what could we do today? What are we going to do moving forward? We made a commitment. We made a vote to go in that direction. Supervisor Rivas showed me the language, and he's correct. It says winter, correct, Supervisor? Winter. He's correct. And it'll be a good opportunity for us to revisit everything, I guess. You know, this is an opportunity, and let's be man about it and say, okay, we'll revisit everything. I'm okay with that, Madam Chair.
All right. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, as you all know, I've been against this site from the get-go. I continue to be against this site. And I think with the way this project is metamorphosing into something that bigger than what we initially intended, I think, once again, we need to revisit the site. I'm all supportive of spending the money to assess the hazardous situation of the old hospital, and I totally agree that the old hospital needs to come down sooner than later. But again, we're going to have to come up, not only with $75,000 to study it, we're going to have to come up with another $500,000 or more to actually remove it.
Well, I think that's what the grant is
What-
for.
no,
Yeah. I'm assuming, and maybe, but we're going to get down that subject in a little bit.
But, you know, I'm all for it, but again, it's not going to happen tomorrow. I think building a homeless shelter on this site with the hospital and the issues of the hospital that it has is just going to compound the problem. And so I definitely think we need to revisit the site, and especially in light that the project seems to be metamorphosing into something bigger. It needs to be revisited, put back, or again, reconsider putting it back where the services already are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I can't disagree more. The reason why we went to that site, it's county-owned land. We have the opportunity to clean up that site, tear down the hospital. I'm not sure why we need to spend $75,000 to do an environmental assessment when we already have environmental assessments. We know that there's asbestos. It just needs to be torn down. Take the $75,000 and tear down the damn hospital. And take some of the money that we were purchased property to tear down the hospital and clean up, you know, a county blight. You know, it's really too bad that, you know, some of the folks that live down there at Riverview Estates, that is a subsidized housing development and fantastic program. People have the opportunity to own their own homes. It's a self-help deal. It was terrific. And now we're trying to help some individuals that have some issues and they're homeless with a clean facility that is year-round and convey the services that will turn them onto a different track. The homeless have been out there for years during the winter. And I'm not aware of any issues or problems. And this facility that we want to, put in place is going to be a controlled facility that is even add more security to the area. And I just feel that it's completely unfair to identify homeless people with people that are lawless. It's bad as being called a racist up here for trying to put the facility on county-owned land. I don't buy into that, and I won't accept that. So I think we have the site identified. We got to go forward with it. Otherwise, we might as well just quit right now. Let the homeless live down there in the river, and because we're going to lose that grant. And that's what we're running up against, is losing that grant. And I think too many people work too hard to get to this point. All we need to do is rein it back into what we can do and get going with it.
And you're right. I think Jim is exploring different options that we can go, but Supervisor Rivas, go ahead.
Yeah, and, the supervisor is correct. I'll stick by my earlier comments that, when I look back at it, maybe it wasn't, we didn't, as a board, we didn't properly vet the site as far as reaching out to local neighbors and whatnot. We could have been more diligent in doing so. But clearly this site was chosen namely because, the homeless population has been housed out there for a number of years. It is county-owned land. And I agree with all that's been said, but, moving forward, we still don't know the exact extent of the contamination and the impact that could have moving forward. I think that it would be responsible of this board to select a couple of alternative sites as fallback, because we don't want to be stuck in a situation where, hey, we can't develop out there at all, and then we're back to the drawing board. Maybe we do explore alternative locations as fallback if this location falls through. That way we're prepared and we don't lose our grant funding. Because, I do think it's a little suspect that we do build on a contaminated site, because what kind of long-term liabilities is that going to put on our county as far as future development out there. I mean, we don't know, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if staff has the answers at this time either. But I agree with what was said by the speakers. I want to thank them for being here this morning. And moving forward, I really hope, I think that Marty brings up a great point. I think that we have to work together. What's frustrating about this, and I've been the one to point the finger at the mayor because there's mixed messages out there.
Yeah,
As a board, we have a mission, and we've formally made these decisions and resolutions for a day center and a winter shelter. And then all of a sudden, staff comes to us and say, hey, it's a 365-day operation, and the mayor is saying something else. And it's very frustrating because it's politics at its best. You have two local bodies that are, not working together for whatever reason. There's two mixed messages out there. And it's a source of frustration and a source of confusion. I've been a volunteer for the Homeless Coalition. And then when you hear of a day center and winter operation, it works well with what this community has been accustomed to, especially all the hard work that the Homeless Coalition has done. But when you talk about a 365-day operation, it's not feasible for the Homeless Coalition to even be a part of it, probably. And so we've got to, to look at certainly our needs, but at our resources and see what it is that we, can actually do. And what's going to be best for our homeless population. I've always felt, and I've said this in the past, the winter shelter has worked well. Sure, we've had a lot of bumps in the road as far as the facility, but this facility meets a tremendous need to have a permanent location for a homeless population, and also this day center operation meets a significant, it represents a significant opportunity to help our homeless population in receiving the services that they so desperately need, whether it be mental health, whether it be substance abuse. That's what they need, and certainly, tie that into the winter to an emergency winter operation, and maybe eventually that can morph into a 365-day operation. But to take such a significant leap, in my opinion, is, not the direction I'm ready to move into without properly vetting all of our options. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Jim, thank you so much for the presentation. I have to agree with Supervisor Botello. We both have sat on and attended meetings that deal with the planning that goes on with creating and moving forward on such a big project. I have issue with people saying that they received a break, but don't you dare give anybody else a break. That just doesn't sit well with me. We are here, and this is about community. If we don't address it together, then it's going to be everybody's problem, and it's going to grow into a bigger problem if we don't address it now. So I believe, Jim, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been working with the city. We have worked together to get where we're at. If there's messages out there that are different than what the homeless committee is doing, then that has nothing to do with us. It's people out there talking about other things, but this committee has been very unified on how we're moving forward. And so I have to support it, move forward. We have a plan, there's opportunity, and I don't believe that hospital can be separate from what the plan that we have right now. That is what's actually going to give us the opportunity to get funding, when we have a plan on what we're going to do with it. We're going to be seen as a community that is planning, that is addressing issues, that is addressing the homelessness. So we have greater opportunity to be able to take that building down. And so I see it as a joint effort and moving simultaneously with the direction that we're going. So, Jim, if you could kind of give us a timeline on, for instance, if we apply for this grant, well, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but as we move forward, timelines, I think, are important.
Sure.
So that this board can understand and be, and be informed about how this is going to move forward with all these pieces coming together.
Thank you. Item number 30 is to review and accept the homeless services update, which we've given to you. I made some notes here, and I want to be sure that, the notes I've made is the direction I'm hearing today, okay? Note number 1 is review and revisit the sites. Note number 2 is review and discuss operations. Note number 3 is review and discuss options for where this might, that we might have for moving forward with funding. And number 4 is review and discuss resources. So if those notes are correct, then we will work on an item to come back to the board with those items, if that's your direction.
It's not my direction, because this board has already made a decision on the location. I think the location, the idea of going and finding another location would be only if, as we move forward with some of these items like the contamination, the asbestos and all that, that makes it impossible to do our homeless reporting center there. That would be the only way that I would go into another direction. So you're not hearing that direction from me. Everything else, yes, that we have to explore opportunities, we have to, sustainability, all of the things that you mentioned. But the site is already decided upon by this board. We just have to have a clear plan on how we're going to mitigate some of the issues that were brought up by the folks, which are valid, and just, just clean it up as we go. The language and how we're going to proceed with how it's going to be run, organization.
And we're trying to address that particular issue with item number 33 to begin to address that.
Okay. So I think at this time what we'll do is we accept the update. That's all this is. So I don't think we need to take a vote, council?
Well, the board has to decide whether they're going to accept the homeless service update. But that's all that is just accepting the homeless service update. It's not a referendum or a vote on where the homeless center is going or all the other tangential issues. It's just whether you're going to accept the homeless service update or not.
Okay, then I will make the motion that we receive this update by, that Jim has presented.
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Jim, for presenting that to us. We'll move on to item number 31, and that would be to accept the Homeless Census Executive Summary Report.
And we presented the summary in the update to you. There are copies of that back here for the public. And so today, all we're asking you to do is to accept the report so that we can go back to the agencies that deal with this and say that the board has accepted the census report for 2015.
Okay, and the report was in your packet. It was very comprehensive, a lot of good information. Jim, a lot of work was put into that census, and it's facts. This is information that was gathered by how many volunteers, Jim? About 30?
I think there was 30, about 30, 35 volunteers, which is a larger number than what we've had before. So I think we've had a opportunity to be more accurate on assessing, what the actual count is in San Benito County.
Okay, so thank you. Any comments from the public regarding the Census Executive Summary Report? Bring it back to the board.
Move to accept the 2015 San Benito County Homeless Census Summary Report.
Okay, there's a motion, and I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The report has been accepted, 5-0. Item number 32, and I will turn this over to our CAO to introduce this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this item, again, is tied in with the 4 items that we discussed. This is to discuss with your board the options of the use of the homeless center, the CDBG grant, and selection of use of CDBG grant as the project recoverable for the homeless service center. So we kind of talked about that a little bit. But we have both Joe as well as Jim here to discuss that any further if your board wishes.
Go ahead.
No, they discussed all 4 at the same time. Everything's been discussed already.
Well, now that I'm moving it on a little bit, hopefully clear and separated, I think this one is a standalone.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a standalone, yeah.
And so what we're asking the board is flexibility about the use of the dollars rather than just straight infusion into the project. This gives flexibility as we figure out what that scope of the project ultimately wants to be. That we'd have the ability to use it as a grant, recoverable grant, or as a forgivable loan as one option.
And this is just to explore those options, not to
Yes.
make a decision
Right.
on an
Correct.
option. It'll come back to the board for further presentation, discussion, and.
Yeah, so it'll probably come before several times, because as we have the continuing conversation about what is the scope of the project and, you know, how it's going to be operated, clearly that'll be a part of that. And assuming kind of there's a trajectory or path that it goes somewhere, and we decided we were going to pick an operator or a nonprofit, there would be separate legal documents and decisions all around that. So this is more of, is there a willingness to consider this?
Now, can we incorporate this with all the notes that you made, Jim? Because it ties in together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because now we maybe, if we're going in a different direction, then we can see if these options work with a plan that we may be moving forward.
Well, and this item actually originates from discussions we've had with the state. We came into this project thinking that, well, we're going to have to just simply go out and build a shelter and then find a provider. They've given us options to look at. So what we're asking for the board today is to ask staff to look at those options, come back to the board, present the various options for a final decision.
Okay. Any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah,
Supervisor Rivas?
I guess I can't support this item because I want to see those options before making a decision. You know, I don't want to give a blanket, you know, just this broad approval of something that I don't have any options before me. So I can't support it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I totally apologize to the board. What are the options, sorry?
Well, that's the thing, is that the state of California has very stringent options that we can go with. So it's not like a broad, that we can just go anywhere. They will govern what options we may and may not use.
Well, in the federal government, because this is ultimately is federal money
That
that's
is
coming
true.
through. So we're living through that. And it's really is a question, do we go through, the original purpose of the money was to go through and help build a facility on land that we would buy. So the source of dollars was going to go to land acquisition and capital cost to build a facility. Facility will go through and kind of leave part of how big that was. But that was what the use of the monies. What the state has told us, we could do that, or we could go through and rather than just cash infuse it direct in, we could go through and basically have clawback provisions and use it either as a loan or a grant that we had more control and kind of treat it a little bit more like our money rather than just federal money jumping into a project.
It gives the county a little more
A
flexibility.
little bit more
in
control is how I would argue.
opportunities that we talked about earlier. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my arms around it as well. You know, we have 1.5 million to build a capital project. We own the land. I just don't want that 1.5 million to kind of disappear, and then all of a sudden we're, you know, especially as Supervisor Lowe mentioned about, you know, the project down south is 4 million, and then all of a sudden we don't have any money to build our center.
It's a much bigger facility in San Luis Obispo,
Of course,
so that's
and
why I
you
said
were talking about
scaling it back.
down.
But that's why I mentioned, though, when we were looking at the other site, that was also involving land acquisition. And so, you know, at the end of the day, there's multiple sources of resources that will go into this project, assuming there's something that ultimately gets built. Some of that is land that, in this case, at Southside, we're looking at putting into the deal. At the other site, we were going to have to put dollars to buy that. There's going to be dollars needed to build something, and whether that's, you know, CDBG money, whether it's intergovernmental transfer dollars, it's tax credit dollars. There's a lot of different sources of dollars that are going to come in to build a project, and that's how San Luis builds one. It's how the stuff in Monterey, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara County, how all of those happen. It's no one source of dollars. And so I think that's part of what we're working through, is being able to tell that better story for you, is here's really what it's going to take. But the first starting point is, what do we actually need that, you know, meets the needs of our community? And that's, I think, a fair conversation to come back to the board, because I will own part of that confusion is somebody kind of stepped in a little bit, you know, that there had been initial stuff and I made some assumptions, and I kind of want to go through and make sure that of all the things that we're trying to do and the messaging kind of from the board about, solving what's going on with the river, what's going on with the housing census, and, what are our needs, was kind of those pieces. And I think that's where the committee that's working too is the same sort of thing. So I think it'd be good to kind of reground ourselves about what is it we really are going to setting out to do.
All right, well, it sounds like we've given good direction in that respect, so we can tie it in to perhaps this moving forward with exploring any other means of being able to spend the money with flexibility and perhaps with other partners that might come in and infuse money into the project. So, any other?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm concur with Supervisor Rivas. I cannot support this action at this point because already we gave clear direction. We said we wanted to do a day center with a winter shelter. Now all of a sudden we're being presented that we have a 24/7, 365. And somehow that decision got made without our input. This is a big change that we've just barely heard about, and I'm not ready to support it. I think Jim needs to come back to us with more discussions, the discussions of whether we want a day center, which you just referred to it as, and a winter shelter, or do we want a full-blown 24/7? Before we start making these kind of decisions, we need to decide what kind of project we want. And I'm not ready to support this at this time.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Jim or Joe, regardless of what direction we go on a day or 24, that has a bearing on the decision right now?
This particular issue, I don't know if I could comment on that. I think I'm thinking that, and agreeing with Supervisor Munzer, that would be probably a prudent thing to take an issue like this and some other things that have been identified today and come back to the board with further discussion and more public hearing.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So what you're saying, Jim, is you're recommending that we bring this particular item, number 32, that would actually just allow us, or allow you to explore, other ways of using the grant, but
Right.
bring it back at the same time that perhaps we discuss how we may move forward with a plan.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I can support that,
Prefer.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so then do we want to go ahead? Is there a consensus? Well, let me hear from the public first. Are there any comments from the public? Okay, if there's a consensus, then to bring this item number 32 back with more specific ideas of what the homeless shelter is going to look like and when it's going to be open and what programs, that sort of detail.
So you need a motion to continue the item for a date uncertain?
For a date uncertain, so that let's just plan on the next agenda, meeting.
Could we ask for a little more time than a couple of weeks?
Sure, 2
Okay.
months.
Could we bring
I'll
this
make a
back like
motion
the
to-
first meeting in September?
The first meeting in September, is there a
make-
consensus, or do I need a motion, council? Okay, is that your motion?
Yeah, that's my motion.
For sometime in September, there's a motion and a second that this item, number 32, come back in September. So any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So just a clarification, this item and other items that you have talked about today, you want brought back in September?
Incorporated with this, because I think they're all connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what, let's go ahead and, if it's okay with the board, we can break, or go ahead and deal with the other two that are also connected.
Well, I heard Ray's going to pay lunch for us, so just keep going.
Keep going? Okay.
No,
You're okay?
I'm joking, Madam Chair.
We do have a working lunch today, so we're not taking a break, except that we will be going and doing part of our closed session, I believe, during the lunch hour.
Ah,
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No open meeting and closed session. So, okay, item number 33.
Item number 33 is we're asking the board to authorize submittal of a grant application for $75,000 to the State Toxic Substance Abuse Control Agency for environmental assessment of the South Side property area. That area, as Joe also pointed out, would be not only the hospital site, but the quarry site, and just pretty much what's out there. This is a step that we probably need to go through. The funding, we can apply for the funding. We think we have a good opportunity to get it. We should be able to, get that assessment done in a timely manner. Once we have that assessment done, then, and in our hands, then we can begin to apply for funds to mitigate the issues that are on these properties, including tearing down the hospital. So we think this is the first step that we need to take in order to get to the next step. We're trying to move this along as quickly as we can, and hoping that within a year, within about a year, according to Jose, that we'll be at the point where we're finished with this part of it. But that's our goal. But the first step is this. So we're asking the board to authorize us to submit this grant application today.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Jim? Okay, comments from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back for a decision.
Move per staff recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion. And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 34, Jim?
Item number 34 is to authorize Health and Human Service agencies to participate in intergovernmental fund transfer with the California Department of Health Care Services in order to increase Medi-Cal reimbursement for services previously provided. This is a provision in the federal government that allows states and local counties to actually apply for funds that have not been used to meet the needs of a defined population for medical services in that jurisdiction. We have worked with a consultant on this who has done this in other counties and other states. We have put together a study. The study shows that for the base year of, I think it's 13-14, there is approximately $155,000 available in federal funds. If that is ultimately approved, which we think it will be, those funds will come into the county within the next 3 to 6 months. They are funds, and we have researched this, that it can actually be used for providing support services instead of including operational costs for a center for the homeless population because it's unmet medical needs. So today what we're asking the board to do is to give us approval to move forward and to complete this process and sign the forms that need to be done so that the state could make a decision to request this money from the federal government and have it come to San Benito County.
Not a bad deal. Any comments, questions from Jim? Comments from the public on this item? And while Marty's coming up, in the interest of time, I'm thinking that maybe we could go ahead and work openly, and try to get through our agenda until 12:30, and then break and come back at 1:30. We can do our closed session items.
We can start our closed session.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
The lunch is here for our closed session items, so I don't know if we're going to continue with regular agenda items till 12:30. I think that's what I heard. The food might get cold, so
Okay.
if we can get into the, Supervisor De La Cruz. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
We don't know if he'll survive.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's.
Hey.
Okay, let's bring it back. Marty, thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your time. It's not a problem. Ray offered me lunch if I stood at the podium. Marty Racer from Hollister. First of all, I'd like to didn't want to come up separately to thank you for doing exactly what I said, which was take a step back, which you did by putting this till September to get it straight. So I appreciate you taking my suggestion into consideration. I heard this reference on this issue. It looks straightforward, but he mentioned that it was a consultant. I wonder if he could answer the question: is the consultant working for a percentage of what we might recoup? I wonder if I could get that answer first before I make comment.
The answer to that is no. The consultant was paid out of Health and Human Services budget.
Okay.
Thank you. Then my concern, because my history in my head is that we, at some point way back when, way back when, it may have been the county or the city, worked with a consultant on some issues where they worked for a percentage of what we would recoup, and we got the money, and then the government came and said, oh no, you didn't qualify. The consultant walked away with the money, and they took the money back. Okay, so I wanted to make sure if we do that, and I have no problem in signing up to give people part of what we might recoup, but when we do that, we want to have a provision in the contract that if the government takes the money back, we get the fee back. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, do we want to break? I will take the direction of the board.
Let's just break.
A break?
Well,
Okay, yes.
But we can go into closed session, and then we can discuss some closed session items during our break, so if that's
Yeah.
okay with the board.
Okay, my apologies to the public, but it is a very long agenda. We just never know when things are going to come up, so we will break for closed session items. But before we do that, council, will you please inform the public?
Yes. And then if anyone has any public comment on the closed session.
Yes, exactly.
All right, the Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session on the regular agenda for today. Agenda items number 41 through 44. Agenda item number 41 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of section 549569 in 2 cases. Agenda item number 42 is to confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivisions D2, E2, and E3 of Government Code Section 54956.9 in 1 case. The facts and circumstances justifying the closed session is the receipt by the county of a claim from Citadel Exploration on July 9th, 2015. In regards to agenda item number 43, to confer with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to subdivisions A and D1 of section 54956.9 in the case of the Sierra Club et al. Versus the County of San Benito et al., filed in the California Superior Court for the County of San Benito under cause number CU-15-00081. And finally, agenda item number 44 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the significant exposure to litigation pursuant to section 54956.9 in 1 case. This closed session is authorized by section 54956.9 D2 and E1.
Okay, any comments or questions from the public regarding these closed session items? Okay, we will adjourn to closed session and return at 1:30.